Some people walk past a fruit stand without even looking twice. But one ordinary afternoon, my life changed because one woman fell to the ground right in front of mine. As I rushed to help her, she grabbed my wrist with surprising strength and whispered something that made my heart stop. "Please, don't call his family." She lost consciousness before I could ask what she meant. I had no idea who he was or why those words mattered so much. All I knew was that a stranger had trusted me with her final conscious thought, and I couldn't walk away. Before we begin, if you enjoy heartfelt stories that remind us how powerful kindness can be, please like this video, subscribe to Kindness Story, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more true-to-life stories that inspire hope and compassion. Now, let's begin. I've owned a small fruit stand on a busy street for nearly 15 years. Every morning before sunrise, I arranged apples, peaches, oranges, and fresh berries while the city slowly woke up around me. Most days were predictable. Office workers grabbed bananas on their way to work. Parents stopped by with their children after school. Elderly neighbors came just to chat for a few minutes before buying a few pieces of fruit. That afternoon felt no different. The summer heat was intense, and people hurried along the sidewalk, trying to stay out of the sun. I noticed a woman walking toward my stand. She looked to be in her late 60s. Her clothes were neat, but her face looked pale and exhausted. She reached for the edge of my table as if she needed support. Before I could ask if she was all right, her knees gave out. She collapsed onto the sidewalk. I rushed around the stand and knelt beside her. A few strangers gathered nearby. Someone shouted that they were calling 911. The woman slowly opened her eyes. She looked directly at me and squeezed my hand. "Please," she whispered. "Don't call his family." Then her eyes closed again. The ambulance arrived within minutes. The paramedics checked her pulse and carefully lifted her onto a stretcher. One of them asked if anyone knew her. Nobody did. I noticed a worn leather purse lying beside her. The paramedic handed it to me and asked if I could bring it to the hospital since I had stayed with her the entire time. Inside the emergency room, the doctors quickly began treating her. While waiting, a nurse searched the purse for identification. Her name was Margaret. There was a wallet, a few dollars, some grocery coupons, and an envelope with my fruit stand's address written neatly on the front. That surprised me. The nurse handed me the envelope because it had my business written on it. Inside was a simple note. "If anything happens to me while visiting the fruit stand, please tell the owner thank you for treating me like family." I sat there speechless. I had seen Margaret many times over the past year. She always bought one apple and one orange. Sometimes I slipped an extra peach into her bag. Other times I refused to charge her for bottled water on especially hot days. To me, they were tiny acts of kindness. To her, they had meant something much bigger. Later that evening, Margaret finally woke up. She smiled weakly when she saw me sitting nearby. "You stayed," she said softly. Of course I did. Tears filled her eyes. She explained that after her husband passed away, her only son married and moved several states away. At first they stayed in touch, but arguments over money slowly damaged their relationship. Eventually they stopped speaking altogether. "I don't hate him," she said quietly. "I just don't want him to come because he feels guilty." I listened without interrupting. She continued. "I've been sick for months. I didn't tell anyone. The only place where someone smiled at me every week was your fruit stand. I didn't know what to say." Sometimes we never realize how lonely another person truly is. The doctor said Margaret had become severely dehydrated and exhausted. She would recover, but she needed someone to check on her during the next few weeks. Without thinking twice, I offered. Every morning before opening my stand, I stopped by her apartment with fresh fruit. Sometimes we shared breakfast. Other times we simply talked. She told me stories about growing up in a small American town, raising her son, and dancing with her husband every Friday night for nearly 40 years. Her apartment slowly filled with laughter again. One afternoon I asked why she had specifically whispered not to call her son's family. She looked out the window for a long moment. "I wanted someone to help me because they cared," she answered. "Not because they felt obligated." Her words stayed with me. Weeks passed, and Margaret grew stronger. One Saturday she surprised me by returning to the fruit stand carrying homemade blueberry muffins. Customers smiled as she proudly introduced herself as my friend. The regulars welcomed her immediately. Before long, she became part of our little community. She greeted children after school, helped older customers carry their bags, and even remembered everyone's favorite fruit. The lonely woman who had once walked the streets unnoticed was now surrounded by people who genuinely cared. A few months later, something unexpected happened. A young man walked up to my stand asking for Margaret. His voice trembled. "I'm her son." Margaret happened to be arranging peaches beside me. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then he quietly said, "Mom, I've been looking for you." She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I never stopped loving you." He admitted that pride had kept him away for years. After hearing from a neighbor that his mother had been hospitalized months earlier, he realized how much time they had lost. Margaret didn't yell. She didn't blame him. She simply opened her arms. They hugged for what felt like forever. Many customers quietly wiped away tears as they watched. That afternoon, Margaret introduced me to her son. "This is the man who reminded me that strangers can become family." I smiled and replied, "Sometimes all someone needs is a little kindness to find hope again." Today, Margaret still visits my fruit stand every Saturday. Sometimes she comes alone. Sometimes her son joins her with his own children. They laugh together while choosing apples and peaches, creating memories that once seemed impossible. Looking back, I often think about that frightening afternoon when she collapsed in front of my stand. I almost saw it as nothing more than an emergency. Instead, it became the beginning of friendships, healing, forgiveness, and a family finding its way back together. Kindness rarely makes headlines. It usually looks like sharing a bottle of water, offering a seat, listening without judgment, or giving someone an extra piece of fruit because you think they might need it. Yet those small moments can change someone's entire life. So the next time you have the chance to help a stranger, don't underestimate the power of a simple act of kindness. You never know whose heart is waiting for hope, whose family might be restored, or whose life could be changed because you chose compassion over convenience. And if this story reminds you of anything, let it be this: kindness costs very little, but its impact can last forever.